Augie, thank you so much for joining us, for your willingness to be our first person today. So thank you very much for being here and on this particular day, the commemoration of the invasion at Normandy. We have a very short time. You have so much to share with us, so we'll get started right away. World War II began with Germany's invasion of Poland, September 1st, 1939. But before we turn to the war and the Holocaust, tell us first about your family, your community, and your early years of life before World War II began.
My earliest memories are from a farm where I lived my first 6 years in a very pleasant place. We had lots of cousins. My parents were, they had 9 siblings and my mother had 8 siblings, so that we had lots of cousins. They came to vacation in our house on the farm, and we had a really nice, quiet childhood, even where the war was already raging in Europe, other places. We had no television, of course, and we were not supposed to listen to the radio, so we were not very well informed. And maybe we took advantage of it.
Augie, you shared with me that before the war began, you were full of patriotism towards Hungary. Will you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it was a school system also, and I read a lot of history about Hungary, and I started to write poetry about patriotism to Hungary that very, very quickly had to be forgotten. And
what caused your family to move to Miskolc? And once they were there, what did your family do? Why did you move to Miskolc?
We had to move as my father was fired from his job in 1936, and it was a really unexpected, unbelievable situation. He got a heart attack that he never ever even recovered from it. So my mother understood that she has to take over the responsibility of the family. So we moved to Miskolc, to this boarding house that she opened, and it was a good business and spared my father's involvement, actually.
Augie, of course, with the war beginning September 1st, 1939, the full impact of the war itself didn't really come to your community for several years, in fact, until the Nazis occupied your town in 1944. Tell us about that time between the start of the war in 1939 and before the Germans came in early 1944. That was a long period. What was that like for you and your family?
There were rumors, of course, that something is going, something might even happen. But my parents were using this sentence that we so often hear now: to us, this will not happen. And they really believed that it won't. So there were no serious plans even made, what if it will happen. We could have escaped, but where to? And to leave behind the families and the siblings of my parents and the business and everything. They just didn't plan to leave, and it was not logical even to...
With such a large extended family, did any of your family members leave Hungary during that time?
Actually, during that time, one cousin came to the States very early, I think in 1936. And she was the only one.
The only one.
But the rest of the family was saved because we were living in Miskolc, only my parents and my sister and me, but all the other family members were in Budapest, and there was no more time for the Nazis to deport the Jews from Budapest. So almost everyone was saved.
You were a little girl during that time, yet at some point you became aware of anti-Semitism. Do you remember when you first became aware of anti-Semitism in your life?
There was an incident that I didn't even tell my parents. I don't know what was my reason not to upset them, or maybe not. I was afraid they might let me go to school again. when I was coming home from school, I had the backpack on, my bag was on my back, and there was a boy from far yelling, "Jew, a Jew," and threw some stones at me, and the stones hit the bag on my bag, and somehow it was very, very disturbing and scary, but I didn't dare to tell it to my parents.
So you didn't tell your parents
No.
that? No.
No.
Were you able to continue schooling during those years? Were you able to go to school up until the time the Nazis came
Just till the last day.
Until the last day before the Nazis
And
came?
it was in 1944, the 19th of March, my dad died. He was already unconscious the past few days. Actually, he didn't know what happened. And when we came back from the funeral, every street corner already there was standing a German soldier with gun.
So that date, March 19th, 1944, the day your father died, is when the Nazis occupied Hungary.
It was the worst situation.
Tell us more about that day and then what followed in the few days after that, as you recall.
There were instantly new rules. For instance, the yellow star, we couldn't leave the street without having a yellow star on our jackets or blouses. Jewish teenagers were not supposed to own a bicycle. We had to take our bicycles to the municipality and hand it in. It was really something that was very surprising, but it was a fact. We were not supposed to walk on the streets, of course, without the yellow stars, not even with. There was a no win-win situation here. My mother tried to leave town and save us by, they asked for workers in the fields as the men were away in war and was very needed. Some friends and kids, we went to Muhipusta, it's a very famous village, and we worked in the fields for a couple of days actually. But then we were supposed to swear loyalty to Hungary, and we did. And it was that we shouldn't be, the reason was that we shouldn't be deported. But then the rules changed, and they brought us back and put us in the ghettos.
But initially they said if you swear loyalty, you won't be deported.
Yeah, that we won't be deported.
If I remember right, at some point your mother tried to save you by sending you to another village. Will you share that with us?
She sent us to a non-Jewish lady whom we knew, and she offered to have us. But the reality hit her later that actually she's hiding Jews. That was an expression very often used those times. And she stopped letting us out of the house or going near the window. And we were still in mourning. My father just died, so we didn't like to be there. So we called my mother to take us back home. That was still a home.
And to go there was very dangerous. You took off, I think you took off your yellow stars. So you were traveling, had you been stopped?
We risked to go without the yellow star. It was our decision, my mother said. And it was very scary on the train because the Nazis and the Hungarian gendarmes were asking for papers, documents, looking at people, deciding on the spot who can continue on the train, who is supposed to take off the train, and what happens to those who were taken off. We didn't even think about it. And when I was so scared on the train, I didn't even know what I was so scared of. I just saw people taken off and taken away, led away by police and the Nazis. But somehow we were so lucky, and I don't know, we arrived safely back, and we were not disturbed.
And then, as you were telling us, you went to a farm to work with a small group of others from your community. When you returned to Miskolc, tell us about going back to Miskolc. I think you were taken back there by the police.
We were, and it was actually the 2nd of June, and there was bombarding, and we were supposed to lie low in the field, and we were taken to another small village where they separated us from the men, And they were questioned, where did you hide the jewelry and money and documents and whatever the Nazis wanted to have. Mm-hmm. They were beaten badly. We were so desperate that it's really undescribable.
And that day was your birthday, wasn't it? June 2nd?
Yes.
Yeah. In the middle of June, several weeks, less than 2 weeks later, you and your family and many other Jews were taken to a brick factory for deportation to Auschwitz. Tell us about that and what happened to you and your family when you were taken there. And just to add to what Patricia said at the opening, while that was happening, the Allies are landing, but the Germans are intensifying their efforts. In fact, if I remember correctly, over about a 6-week span, more than 400,000 Jews from Hungary were deported from Auschwitz, which beggars the imagination. And there you were. Tell us what happened.
We didn't know actually what was the importance. And that's in that same month when actually the D-Day was already there and Normandy was already taking place. And how could the Germans so quickly and so organized, well organized, what shall I tell you, to deport quickly, very quickly, the Hungarian Jews. And we were taken to this brick factory, and it was only one of them, one station among the hundreds of other stations where they had to, the Jewish people had to get up on those boxing trains, the cattle trains, I don't even know how to call them. And it was the worst of the worst that one can imagine. When I saw that the ghetto was the worst, that we were so crowded and we had nowhere to eat and nowhere to sleep and nowhere to sit, nowhere to talk, and there were so many people around us, I thought that can't be worse. Yeah. But the wagons were much worse, and they pushed as many people as the standing place was there. And we had no idea that it will take 3.5 days of journey.
Auggie, before you tell us more about that, let me ask you just another question. While you were in the brick factory, I believe, one of your friends actually escaped from there.
Some neighbors, some friends, some colleagues really told my mom, take the girls and just walk out. It had no sides, the brick factory, only a roof. And it could have been done. She was so scared, my mother, that one of us will be taken in a different way or discovered, or she just wasn't up to it. She just couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So she decided to stay. Was she sorry after she saw what's happening? And when the doors opened in Auschwitz, actually, and we found out it was Auschwitz, and it was a 3.5 days journey, we were so dazed. And somehow we kept hearing some guards telling us, you know how lucky you were? But how lucky can I be? Mm. And I was lucky, because the idea was, the real question was that nobody died in our wagon. So I don't know how those people really coped also with this in this closed wagon for 3.5 days. Nobody died in our wagon, so we were lucky. And you will hear it several times more than we were supposed to be lucky.
So after 3.5 days, you arrive at Auschwitz. Tell us about that.
There were different people. There were babies, teenagers, pregnant women, old people, sick people. Some teenagers started to scream. They didn't know what's going to happen, what's going on. They couldn't stop. Babies started to cry, couldn't stop crying. Mm-hmm. People fainted. People were hungry, thirsty, hot. It was really a situation that I could say it was the worst. It wasn't. So when we arrived and suddenly the doors opened and we saw where we were, we did not know where we were. So this time my mother told, she's not taking any chances. She will go to the front. Get my scarf. Oh. to go to the front and get information what's happening.
Thank you, Doreen. Thank you.
And what was happening was that there were 3, 4 Nazis selecting. They were selecting left for some people and right for another sort of people. And my mother was watching what's happening. And then they told that every girl under 16 automatically will be sent to the left side. God knows, who knew, who thought what was left side. All what my mother wanted to be sure of, that we look the same, more or less. Mm-hmm. So she told us, she came back slowly and gave between the lines on gunpoint, but she got back to us, and she told us, don't tell anymore that you are sisters, or don't tell that I am your mother, because the Nazis immediately will separate family members. That was one of the goals. And you can't say that you are 13. My sister was 13, I was 14. We can't say our age, because we might not look it. So she told me, you take out your scarves and bind it on your head in a way that you should look older. And it was done like this. Even now I look older. So it's something worked. She bound her scarf actually in a different way, that she should look younger. And it was done that way.
So that she would look younger,
yeah.
That was brilliant on her part.
I can't even tell you.
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
So we were sent to the same side, all the 3 of us. Now, our happiness didn't last very long, of course, because there were more selections and more humiliations that is undescribable. I can't even tell you exactly what horrible things were happening that day.
Do you mind telling us about your friend Edith?
Edith was the other Jewish girl in my classroom. There were only 2 Jewish girls in the classroom. I went still to school, and somehow we became really, really very good friends, very good friends. And when we were in the brick factory, we kept together, her mother and us. But when we arrived, her mother was sent to the left. So Edith stayed with us. And my mom kept on telling her, please stay with us. I'll look after you as I'm looking after my own girls. But when the next day, trucks came with loudspeakers that every girl under 16, because there were still some girls slipped in under 16, they wanted to be sure that there won't be any. So there were trucks to take us, they said, maybe to a better place, better food, better treatment. So many girls really started to run, even if they were over. And Edith started to run, and my mother called her back, please stay with me, I will help you and I will look after you. She said, I might see my mom, they might take me somewhere where my mother is. And that cost her life. I never saw her anymore.
And as you were telling us, Auggie, incredibly, you, your mother and sister were still together, and you were selected for labor, and you were sent to a place called Plaszow. What was Plaszow? What did you do there?
Plaszow was a horrible place, but it was a place where the Schindler's List movie was made. Of course, it looked different later. We had to carry big rocks up a hill one day, and the next day we had to carry it back. So it was also humiliating, also senseless, and my sister...
Just carry a rock up and carry it back down.
Next day.
Yeah. And then you had to also then later break up some of the rocks and put them in the ground.
Yeah, we had to break them up and put them to make a road, actually.
And you shared with me that some of the inmate population at Plaszow, besides Jews that had been deported, there are serious criminals there.
When they opened the prisons, all the murderers and robbers and God knows what other sins these people committed, they were sent to Plaszow. So we were not scared only of the Nazis and the guns. We were more scared from our fellow prisoners, I can tell, fellow prisoners.
While you were at Plaszow, there was a point you told me about where you thought you were actually about to be liberated.
We heard cannon shots one nice day, and my mother immediately saw a little bit of light at the end of a big tunnel, that okay, maybe the Russians will come in and liberate us and all our plight will end. But the Germans heard it also, so yeah. They liquidated the camp, they took us back to the railway station, back into the wagons, and we were really, really very desperate, and we were sick, and we were weak, and we were hungry, and we were thirsty. So it was a very, very hard.
And they took you back to Auschwitz, where you faced more selections.
And Auschwitz was always the worst selections. And that was Mengele. I don't even tell that he was a doctor. Dr. Mengele, I can't even pronounce it. He was the angel of death, they called him. He was the worst human being, actually. That's what we heard, but I can't tell you what I didn't see. But he was the one who was selecting that day. And it went very quickly. He had behind him soldiers with guns, and he was standing in the middle and told the way we got off the trains, left, right, but we were more or less used to it already, not knowing what was happening. And what I find very important, that when my mother found out what was happening, she asked all her friends and grown-ups around and whoever was ready to listen to her not to let me know what's happening. She was sure if I will know that there are gas chambers and there are killings and there are whatever, I can't even pronounce it, I will not be able to cope with it. And she was careful that I shouldn't know. And I was naive enough not to know. I found out the first time in Germany, in a coffee house, through the radio when I heard what was happening in Auschwitz. And I was there 2 months ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, and didn't know. Somehow it had to do with my. But then on the other hand, when Mengele was selecting us, my mother was really worried because we looked sick, bad. She told she will go first, my sister after her, and I should be the last. This thing we could arrange. But then she said, if it's a possibility, just follow me, wherever they send me. And the other possibility, working camp. The Nazis need working camps. So if there is a possibility, ask for a working camp. So my mother was sent to the right. My sister was sent to the right. I was sent to the left. So I spoke up. I told him, oh, no, please, let me go to that side. He expected me, I suppose, to say that because my family was on that side. But I was trained for this already, so I told, because there is a working camp. And then he realized we were talking German. Now, I didn't mention the beginning. In the beginning, when I was very small, my father told us that there must be something, we should have something that can't be taken away from us. And he decided on languages. And he brought German nannies. So we spoke fluently German, my sister and I, at that time. So when he heard me talking German, he was, I don't know, impressed or what his feelings, if he had any feelings at all, he thought, okay, go there, go to the right.
After he heard you speaking German.
After he heard me speaking German.
You shared with me, Auggie, that you've been asked many times by people, when you had that encounter with Mengele, were you afraid of him? And you had a...
Yes.
Give us your response.
Later people asked me, what, you were not afraid of Mengele? I told, oh no, I was afraid of my mother. Because she told me what to do and where to go.
And speaking of your mother, on one of the trips in the cattle car, she was injured. And as a result of that, there's quite a remarkable incident that occurred.
Someone stood on her shoulder to look at the small window, but was in these cattle cars, and hurt her shoulder, and that was like a rush. And we were all the time examined by doctors. The purpose was something that I don't even have to tell you, right? Why we were examined. Who is fit to live and who is not fit to live. And when they saw this on my mother, okay, she can live with it, but not in the same barrack with us, just to be in the quarantine barrack with other sick people. And did he get scared this time? Because the selections next day might have sent us out of the camp, and she would have stayed there. So she arranged, she arranged an exchange with another girl whose sister was in that barrack. So here there was a possibility to exchange. So she told the sister, you come here at 7 in the evening, let's say, and I go there. They have only numbers. They will know that here are 230 people and there will be 229 people. That's all what matters. But the girl got cold feet and didn't come over. So in my barrack, there was one person more. And that was bad. And when they found out that it was from the sick barrack, it was even worse. So we were standing outside the whole night, asking the group to step out, who joined the barracks. And they told it was from the sick barrack, everybody will get sick. So nobody said, and nobody stood up, nobody stood out. Mm-hmm. And until today, I have no idea what made them just drop it and let us send us back to
and you'd said to me that your other fellow prisoners there tried to take care of you and look out for you because you were a mother and 2 sisters, and they kept an eye on you. And your mother did many things to protect you. One you told me about is that you wore glasses as a young girl, and she would take those off of you.
She took off my glasses, folded it like this, and put it in the side of her shoe. First, that they shouldn't find it. Second, that I shouldn't look different, because without the glasses, I definitely wouldn't be sitting here today. Right. And very few people really could cope with it to survive without the glasses. That was one of the things really that my mother did regularly.
And when you were at Auschwitz, you also were tattooed while you were there, weren't you?
Yes. When my mother saw the argument with Mengele, whatever we were talking about, she fainted. She knew she will never ever see me again. So when I joined her already, she didn't even know that I was saved. But then, when she came to, we had one of the worst humiliations again. They tattooed on our arm the letter A, Auschwitz, and the number 18,667. People arrived that day to Auschwitz, and they might all have been killed. I don't know how we were saved that time. Mm-hmm. So I want everybody to see the tattoo, because my mother made us promise that we're not going to remove it surgically. She told stories everybody can say, but this is a living proof of us being there, the letter A and the number.
And you might get a chance to view it with Auggie afterwards when you're signing copies of your book. In late 1944, you were sent from Auschwitz for a last time for slave labor. Tell us, you were sent to Rochlitz. Tell us what that was like.
It was a learning camp. We were ordered, the camp Auschwitz got orders from Germany for laborers, for workers, depended for what. And we were not asked, right? But definitely not asked. Sent and ordered 200 people, 180 Hungarians, 20 Polish, to go back to the trains, of course.
All women?
All women, 180 Hungarians, 20 Polish.
Yep.
And we went to Leipzig, and from Leipzig to Rochlitz, that is very close by, and it was a studying camp. They taught us how to make small spare part screws for aeroplanes from aluminum. And I was handed a pencil that made me happier than a piece of bread. I thought that now I am responsible, I'm still a human being in spite of my being just a number, as I was told. And when we knew enough, then we went to the big factory, the real one.
That was at Calv?
In Calv.
In Calv.
Near Stuttgart.
And what did you do at Calv? You trained on how to make these parts, and then that's what you did when you went to Calv?
Yeah, I had to stand near a big machine called Revolver Drehbank. I can still remember the names. And we worked from 7 in the evening till 7 in the morning. The hardest part was to stay awake during the whole night, the early morning hours, near these big machines with this humming, monotonic sound. It was a fight to stay alive. But that's what he did.
You must tell us what your mom did, though.
Okay, so we were 3, my sister and my mom were at a different machine, not like mine where I made the screws from the aluminum. My sister had to check the sizes with a certain device, whether it's big enough or small enough. It was small enough, it was thrown away. If it was big enough, it went to my mother's department, where she had a big filing stone in front of her, and she had to file off the exact millimeter that was written for her instructions. And one nice day, the way she was doing it, the stone exploded, and she got so scared that she fainted again. And then she was taken to headquarters and explained that this is a very delicate stone. You can't press this screw harder to it because then it explodes. And it's very hard to find a new one. And until the new one comes in, the crates are standing at the doorway, can't be sent out to the aeroplane factory. So she thought, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I can help the war a little bit. And she kept on doing it. She kept on pressing the screw to the stone exploded, she fainted, so it became a pattern.
Because had they thought she was doing it deliberately, that would have been the end of her.
The end of all the 3 of us.
All three of you.
So we didn't know. We kids didn't know only after the liberation.
Wow.
Many things we didn't know.
Amazing.
And she was very careful about it, that it should look really authentic. She called it mini sabotage.
Mini sabotage. Finally, in February 1945, you were taken from Calv on a forced march, what we call a death march. Where did you think you were going, and what was that march like for you?
But I was thinking, I can tell you only that I was not thinking.
Okay.
I don't think we could think anymore. It was impossible to stand in the doorway. And I thought we were waiting for, even the wagons would have been better, or for a truck, something. They told us, what? No transport, just walk out the door. So it was winter, it was Germany.
And it was an especially harsh winter.
Yeah. Especially harsh winter. And I didn't mention at the beginning many things. That we had just a piece of dress on us, and our shoes were already worn out, that didn't even fit when we got these clothes and shoes. So scarves or gloves or socks or underwear, this was something we didn't have. So we just had to walk out the door and started walking. 400 kilometers. I don't remember how many weeks it took, but it was again only at night. Only at night, that the villagers shouldn't see us, that the population shouldn't see us. We were walking in half asleep, half frozen, half wet. I can't even tell you how. In the morning, the guards, we had 6 guards, they looked for shelter for us to sleep. Who could sleep? And then in the evening, standing again at the doors of these barns and walk out, and they told us, find yourself some food. The food was raw potatoes, raw cabbage, that sometimes we could find. And when the villagers wanted to give us something, the Germans took it away. Not every time, but most of the time. Mm-hmm. So I think when I told you that this was worst and that was worst, this was the worst. But really, really was the worst.
When were you liberated?
The date?
Or the circumstances?
Circumstances was that we had to, in the middle of the walk, we were told we can go to a railway station, the trains will come and we can continue by train. But the other girls who understood, there were not the two girls who understood German well, they sent the message to the whole group of people that the truth is not to go on by train, the truth is that the trains are bringing weapons to execute us. So we couldn't figure out how it will be done. But when we arrived, anyhow, the trains were gone. With the guns, there was nothing. I just saw some white envelopes by the station master to give to the German officers, not to the soldiers. Later it turned out to be false papers, false documents that they can cross over to Switzerland.
So the officers could cross over to Switzerland, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were sent back to the forest, and that became, really, this time I tell you the worst, there was nothing else worse. To go back after all that hope that we might be, I didn't even care if you had been executed at that point. Mm-hmm. We were sent back to the forest, and suddenly we saw that there were no guards around us. We were just abandoned in this forest in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. That was a very famous ski resort.
Mm-hmm. So you realize there's no guards. What did you do then?
180 Hungarians had 180 opinions. Where to go or what to do. My sister knew what to do. She sat down and started to eat the reserve portions that were left in her bag. But my mother realized that we shouldn't eat anything, quickly or bigger amount of the danger of starving people. Eating too much might be very dangerous. But then my mother found some 30-some people, some women, who agreed to which direction to go, and that to go, we can't stay there, we can fall into enemy hands again. So we started out a certain path, and then we heard voices, we got scared, but they were talking English. So again, I was sent to see who they were. So they were American soldiers. That's the first time in my life I saw Americans. And after they heard who we were, where we come from, and what's our situation, they liberated us actually and took us to their headquarters. And
before they did that, though, didn't you put out like a surrender flag?
Yeah, somebody had the dirty white underwear, sorry. But
white underwear is
something that we didn't have. I don't know where they got some white something, and we got a stick and we had to lift it because we had no idea who is coming opposite us.
So you have to tell us, though, once you were with the soldiers, they offered to get something for you.
Yeah, they took us to their headquarters. They told us, take off the curtains, sew dresses from it. They had medical people around to see who needs what, in what condition we were. And then they were even nice enough to tell us they are going shopping to town and everybody can choose something. We were 30-something people, and they will buy it for us. So people wanted a piece of cake that they dreamt the whole year of a piece of cake. Somebody else wanted just something warm to put on that we dreamt of the whole year. Some other people wanted, a chocolate bar, but I wanted lipstick. I wasn't allowed to wear lipstick, and my mother wouldn't have, I don't know. So I thought, I'm using this time for asking for it.
And they got it for you.
And they got it.
And they got it for you. So in the little time we have left, Auggie, now you're liberated. You've been liberated. You have the U.S. soldiers taking care of you now. What did you, your mother, and your sister do then?
Yeah, it was a nice time. Not everybody after liberation had a nice time. Some people had it very, very, very hard. But we had a nice time. They took us to Innsbruck. There was a hotel for all the refugees, not all, in the vicinity. And we could choose. We could choose where to go. We could choose to come to the States, to Palestine, to Australia, wherever we wanted to. But no, my mother wants to go back to Hungary to find out who was alive. So nobody could persuade her, and so we went back to Hungary.
There's so much more that Auggie can tell us from that point forward, much less all that she skipped over. You know, we could have sat here all afternoon, but I do want to...
All week.
Pardon?
All week.
All week, absolutely. No question about it. And we want to turn to our audience, but I have just two more questions for you, Auggie. You've already pretty much said this, but you said that you cannot really say how horrible things really were. Will you say a little bit more about that? And I think your sister had something to say about that.
There was the 50-year silence at a certain time that people didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to know, didn't want to admit even what happened. It's hard to understand, but that's what it was. And my mother and sister took it very much to heart, not to mention anything anymore. If I dared to ask a question, I was so much interested what my mother thought of something or something that happened that I couldn't remember. I never got an answer. She told, just move on. You were saved, forget the rest. Don't ask questions. And then when I started to talk in schools, and it was my granddaughter who invited me the first time to talk in her classroom, I realized that it's impossible to tell it all. It's impossible to tell the atrocities, the horrors, what were happening, and I will not be able to talk about it if I mention all those undescribable acts. So I promised, my sister was very disappointed when she heard me talking the first time. She told that, you know, that that's not how it happened, and how don't you tell it all? So, of course, my answer was, you don't even tell this. And I realized that if I will not see movies, if I will not read books about the Holocaust, and if I will not hear other people's stories that were worse maybe than mine, maybe not, I will not be able to continue talking. So what I tell you is what I can tell you. I can't tell about all the...
Yeah. Auggie, the other thing, I know that because of the significance of June 6th for D-Day, June 6th is also important in Israel's history in 1967.
It was the Six-Day War, we called it, because it lasted 6 days and it was very dramatic. And my kids were teenagers, so they were not in the army yet. But every single Israeli did their part for this war. Yeah. But it's very, very significant Six-Day War.
And that was June 5th through 10th.
It was June 5th, and 6th was the second day of the Six-Day War.
Well, should we take some questions from our audience?
Yes.
We're going to ask that we have time for a few questions. We ask that you go to one of the two microphones that are in the aisle. Please go to the microphone, make your question as brief as you can, and then I'll repeat it just to make sure that we hear your question. But first, I think we have one from online.
Yes, we have a question from Facebook. Christine Suarez is really touched by your resilience, and she wants to know what or who helped you move forward after your experience during the Holocaust.
She's so impressed with your resilience, she wants to know who or what helped you to be able to move forward with your life after the Holocaust?
After or during?
Or during and after, yeah.
Because during, it was my mother and sister. We did a lot for each other. I don't think I would have been able to survive without my mother, truly, or she without us, or my sister. And we did for each other. We kept up a good face. We were disciplined. We were very careful not to be sad, not to be negative. We were so positive and optimistic during the whole time because of each other.
Thank you, Augie. I'm going to go here, and then I'll come over here, okay?
Yes, during this time, did you observe what kept your faith alive in regards to your Jewish tradition and spiritual lives during the Holocaust?
What kept your faith alive?
By being so lucky and by being selected together with my mother and sister and by being with them. To be with the family, I think that was the most important.
Were there songs that you still sung during these times?
The question is, were there...
No, my father was asked this. I suppose we were singing, but you mean religious songs or just songs?
Just songs.
Well, there is in one of the books an article about a woman, Lily, who sang opera arias to us on a regular basis. And then when you closed your eyes, you could imagine that you are in the opera, listening to a real opera for a few seconds. It was really very, very meaningful.
Did Lily survive?
Yeah, she survived with all of us, and she had kids and yes.
She did, okay. One more question, I think.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about, and I know you said that you guys didn't watch TV, but how the media was used to change people's viewpoints back then, and if you see it happening again today.
Repeat that one more
How
time.
the media and propaganda was used, and how, if you feel that is happening today.
Question is your thoughts about the use of propaganda and how propaganda was used, and if you feel like in the world today we're seeing, propaganda like we heard during World War II before.
Yeah, the propaganda was said in a way that the Holocaust never happened. That the Holocaust is just a propaganda. Mm-hmm. And that's why I decided that I'm going to tell it to everybody who is ready to listen. Yeah. Because somehow I have a feeling that who heard my story will not be anti-Semite anymore and will not say anymore that this didn't happen. Yeah. So.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to turn to Auggie to close our program in just a moment. Before I do, first I'd like to thank you all for being with us. Remind you that we'll have first-person programs each Wednesday and Thursday until August 8th. All of our programs will be up on the museum's YouTube page, so if you can't come back this year, you can see any of our programs on the YouTube page, and we hope you'll take advantage of it. When Auggie is finished, she's going to depart the stage to go upstairs where she will be available to sign copies of Echoes of Memory. That will also be an opportunity for you to talk with Auggie, and if you want to see the tattoo, then you're going to show that to them there. Okay. Once Auggie's up there. It's our tradition at First Person that our first person gets the last word. And so on that note, I'm going to turn to Auggie to close today's program.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for being so quiet and letting me be at ease. Secondly, I find very important, if I can say so, for everybody to know at least one more language. You will never be out of a job if you have one more language, if you know it very well. Discipline in a way that I wouldn't see in the school because it's not a welcome word. To look up to someone and follow that someone's feelings and instructions the way we did with my mother, my sister, and I wouldn't have been able to do it differently. And thanks for being interested at all. Really, thank you.